Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Newshour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour, Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlights inclusive, sustainable growth at G20 opening, proposes global healthcare response team. Summit host President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa stresses Global South agenda in G20 opening statement. European leaders say that a US plan to end the Russia war needs more work. Ukraine and the US to hold talks in Switzerland. And Brazil's former President Jair Bolsonaro, arrested, faces a 27-year sentence for allegedly plotting a coup. Acknowledging the impact of rising geopolitical and geo-economic competition, a declaration adopted at the G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg, South Africa on Saturday confirmed that solidarity, equality and sustainability are key pillars of inclusive growth. A spokesperson for South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa said that the document cannot be renegotiated, noting that it was prepared after months of work and an intense final week. India has ensured that the key outcomes of its 2023 G20 presidency continue to strongly shape the agenda at this year's G20 Summit in South Africa, with the leaders' declaration echoing New Delhi's priorities and amplifying the voice of the Global South. The key outcomes from India's point of view are: terrorism in all its forms and manifestations has been condemned. On technology, the transformative potential of digital public infrastructure has been highlighted. The New Delhi commitments to harness the potential of digital and emerging technologies, including AI, has been reiterated. There was a push for strong language on empowerment of women and girls, and in this regard, women-led development has been encouraged. The Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure has been recognized in the declaration. The Deccan High-Level Principles on Food Security and Nutrition has been reinforced in the context of food security. In health, the role of traditional and complementary medicine has been recognized, echoing the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration. The importance of embracing sustainable production and consumption patterns and mainstreaming lifestyle for sustainable development has been recognized. India also pushed for a call to reform the United Nations Security Council that improves its representation. And last but not the least, language from the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration finds resonance across the document on various other matters as well. Now, Prime Minister Modi delivered his remarks at the G20 Summit at Johannesburg in South Africa on Saturday. The Prime Minister proposed a few actionables to realize the dream of all-round growth. First among them is the creation of a G20 Global Traditional Knowledge Repository. He said that India has a rich history in this regard. This will help to pass on collective wisdom to further good health and well-being. The Prime Minister has said that India has always stood in solidarity with Africa. He noted that it was during India's G20 presidency that the African Union became a permanent G20 member. Taking forward this spirit, India proposed a G20 Africa Skills Multiplier Initiative. The Prime Minister said that collective goal should be to create 1 million certified trainers in Africa within the next decade. India also proposed the setting up of a G20 global healthcare response team. The Prime Minister said that efforts should be to create teams of trained medical experts from fellow G20 countries who are ready for rapid deployment in case of an emergency. To overcome the challenge of drug trafficking, especially the spread of extremely dangerous substances such as fentanyl, India proposed a G20 initiative on countering the drug terror nexus. The Prime Minister also stressed on efforts to weaken the wretched drug terror economy. The G20 Leaders Summit opened on Saturday in Johannesburg, South Africa, with President Cyril Ramaphosa delivering the first address as delegates gathered for 2 days of talks. President Ramaphosa spoke about South Africa's 4 G20 priorities that include debt sustainability, energy transition, disaster resilience, and critical minerals for growth.
We identified 4 high-level priorities. Firstly, we focus on action to strengthen disaster resilience and response. We have agreed that it is essential for the global community, international finance institutions, development banks, and the private sector to scale up post-disaster construction. Secondly, we agreed that we must take action to ensure debt sustainability for low-income countries. The G20 needs to renew its efforts to advance debt sustainability while at the same time laying emphasis on those countries in the global south that are suffering from debt repayments. Thirdly, we said we should mobilize finance for a just energy transition, increasing the quality and quantity of climate finance flows to developing economy countries. Fourthly, we emphasized the importance of harnessing critical minerals for inclusive growth and sustainable development through the beneficiation of the minerals at the place of extraction.
Prime Minister Modi met with a number of world leaders, including Brazil's president and leaders of the UAE and South Korea. He briefly met with the head of the World Trade Organization as well. And PM Modi also met the UN Secretary General. The Prime Minister said, and I quote, "A very productive conversation with the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, on the sidelines of the G20 Johannesburg Summit," unquote. And Prime Minister Modi met with Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney on the sidelines of the summit. The leaders of the 3 countries announced an Australia-Canada-India technology and innovation partnership. The initiative will deepen collaboration between democratic partners across 3 continents and 3 oceans in emerging technologies, support diversification of supply chains, clean energy, and mass adoption of AI. Prime Minister Modi said that they look forward to working together to guarantee a better future for the coming generations. A new trilateral technology and innovation partnership, the Australia-Canada-India Technology and Innovation Partnership. The initiative will deepen collaboration between democratic partners, as I mentioned before, in critical areas including emerging technologies as well as supply chains. And Prime Minister Modi also met with South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung. The Prime Minister said that it was their second meeting this year, which is indicative of the strong momentum in the special strategic partnership between the two countries. The leaders exchanged perspectives to further deepen economic and investment linkages. Prime Minister Modi also met with Brazil's President Lula da Silva. The Prime Minister wrote on X, and I quote, "It's always a delight to meet President Lula. India and Brazil will continue to work closely to boost trade and cultural linkages for the benefit of our people," unquote. The Prime Minister also met with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. He said, and I quote him here, "It was a wonderful meeting Prime Minister Keir Starmer in Johannesburg. This year has brought new energy to the India-UK partnership, and we will keep driving it forward across many domains." In another such meeting, Prime Minister Modi met France's President Emmanuel Macron. He said that India and France ties remain a force for global good. Right, so on the picture on your screens is of the Prime Minister meeting with France's President Emmanuel Macron on the sidelines of the 20th G20 Summit taking place in Johannesburg, South Africa. India and France enjoy close strategic partnership across multiple domains, multiple areas, including trade and investment, defense and security, civil, nuclear energy, as well as people-to-people ties. The Prime Minister held discussions also with Angola's President João Lourenço. He said that he had a wonderful discussion with President Lourenço of Angola, who is also the chair of the African Union. Had the honor of welcoming him to Delhi earlier this year. India values the friendship with Angola, and our nations are working closely to increase trade as well as cultural linkages. Prime Minister Modi also met with Malaysia's Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. He said that he had a great exchange of views with Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim of Malaysia. India and Malaysia will continue to work together to diversify bilateral cooperation. Right, joining us is our special guest, Ambassador Gurjeet Singh. Also joining me from Johannesburg is my colleague Amritpal Singh. Amrit, if I can start with you first in Johannesburg. Amrit, what did you make of India's interventions on day one at the summit?
Intervention on day one in the first session of the G20, which was on sustainable economic growth, inclusive and sustainable economic growth. The Prime Minister essentially put forth 4 proposals on different areas, which include global healthcare response to bring together trained medical experts for the G20 nations, to strengthen the global health security and the emergency response capacity. He also put forth India's vision on a united global effort to dismantle the drug and terror nexus. The Prime Minister also put the 3rd proposal about G20's Africa Skills Multiplier, which primarily aims, which will be an initiative to prepare 1 million certified trainers for Africa over the next in the next one decade. The Prime Minister also proposed for a global traditional knowledge repository under the G20, which is powered by Indian knowledge systems for sustainable insights for future generations. So Prime Minister calling for revisiting the way the world looks at development, calling for revisiting our developmental parameters and proposing India's civilizational values of integral humanism. Calling for a united effort to look at addressing problems, especially those of the global south, the G20 working together as one grouping to reach to the people who need it the most, and the focus clearly on the African continent and the global south in particular, Ramesh.
Amrit, the Prime Minister also held a number of meetings and pull-asides on the margins of the summit as well. What have we been able to learn about those meetings of the Prime Minister? Right, we'll come back to Amrit Pal in just a bit. We'll try to fix that link with him in Johannesburg. In the meantime, if I can bring in our guest, Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, on this discussion. Ambassador Singh is a former Indian envoy to Ethiopia, Djibouti and the African Union. He is also a former ambassador to Germany, Indonesia, Timor-Leste and ASEAN. Ambassador Singh, welcome to DD India News Hour. Are you satisfied with the outcomes from day one of the summit? Anything that stood out for you from the ordinary?
So I think it was a good day, and the possible derailment by the absence of the United States has been overcome by the hosts treating it like an abstention rather than an absence. And therefore they have passed the declaration and said it is not open for renegotiation. The declaration itself, as your report pointed out, has many of the initiatives India had started. And it remains, focused on global south objectives. And it also talks about peace and development in Sudan, in Ukraine, in Palestine and elsewhere. But the sad part is that the European attention of today has been diverted by President Trump's 28-point Ukraine plan. So I think Europeans, though they were at the table, they were more keen to understand how they could get back into the Ukraine gate, of which they seem to be excluded.
Ambassador, we'll come to Ukraine, Russia in just a bit later on the broadcast. But if we can talk a bit more on the summit itself, the G20 in Johannesburg, talking about the 4 proposals by India, including the G20 Global Traditional Knowledge Repository, G20 Africa Skills Multiplier Initiative, G20 Global Healthcare Response Team, and last but not the least, the G20 Initiative on Countering Drug Terror Nexus. Your thoughts on these 4 ideas or proposals, Ambassador Singh?
4 outstanding ideas, very well crafted proposals. And let's start with fentanyl.
Sure.
So when you say fentanyl, you tend to blame China. That's the code line, because most of it comes from there. The United States is so miffed with China that they have put 40% tariffs on China only for fentanyl. So fentanyl is a big threat in this world, and fentanyl and other synthetic drugs. So it is so good that India brought this up at the G20. Now when you come to the public health preparedness, this is to support a post-pandemic response, so that in future, if there is any pandemic or other health emergency, we would not be found lacking in readiness. And India's readiness to contribute to this from its own successful experience of dealing with the pandemic, I think will come to the fore. When we come to traditional knowledge, this has resonance with the global south, particularly with Africa, where traditional knowledge is dying out. So I think what India is proposing is how to protect this and keep it for future generations. And finally, I think the most important, the skill development concept, which is the base of India's development cooperation with the global south. I think that has been well crafted and placed, that we will now contribute to the training of trainers in Africa, so that the capacity building and human resource development of African youth can become useful to them. I'm sure the implementation of this will be taken up by India through its ITEC program and when the next India-Africa Summit meets.
Ambassador Singh, the Prime Minister held a number of meetings, pull asides on the margins of the summit. As they say, sometimes what takes place on the margins of a summit becomes more important sometimes than the summit itself. What did you make of his meetings or talks with the leaders of Brazil, for instance, the UK, France, Malaysia, the UN and South Korea for that matter?
So, you know, yesterday you showed the meeting with the Australian Prime Minister.
Right.
And today the meeting with the Korean president, the second in this year itself. These were proper sit-down meetings. The others were largely pull-asides, like the one you're showing now. But Prime Minister has this ability to very succinctly make a relevant point and get the other person's attention and share some information which is current and get their views and convey our views. So these pull-asides, he is very good at, and I think his personality is such that he reaches out to people. One of the important meetings today was with the Canadian Prime Minister, Carney. Now that is a bit of a revelation because since the G7 summit in June, India-Canadian relations have really picked up. And when both of them met with the Australian Prime Minister and announced a new innovation and technology partnership, I think that was a very good step forward, which will encompass these three democracies, as they said, across three oceans, into coming together into a new innovation partnership. Now that will supplement what we have with the United States. So as diversification and complementarity, I think this initiative also needs to be well recognized.
Indeed. Ambassador, do stay on. I'll come back to you momentarily to discuss more about the Ukraine-Russia conflict as well in just a bit. But in the meantime, we'll pull up some more news for our viewers on this broadcast. A Harvard University economist in the US says that India's economy has bounced back from the pandemic far stronger than most major economies. In fact, Jason Furman calls India the fastest growing large economy in the world. He points out that while the US and Europe are struggling with sluggish growth, India has been posting steady numbers in the range of 6 to 7% a year. He credits India's resilience to strong domestic demand and policy measures that help cushion the blow of COVID-19, something many advanced economies could not match. And with China slowing down, Furman believes that India is now positioned as a key driver of global growth. Despite challenges such as unequal recovery across sectors, Furman says India's momentum makes it a global outlier in the post-COVID-19 recovery story. Emphasizing the need for stronger international cooperation for better protection of seafarers, India's envoy to the United Nations in New York City highlighted the Indian Navy's role in the Western Arabian Sea to counter threats. Speaking at the UN Security Council Area Formula meeting on maritime safety and security protection of seafarers, the envoy said that credible and swift actions of the Indian Navy have saved more than 520 lives.
Over the last 2 years, in response to shipping attacks and rising incidents of piracy in the Western Arabian Sea, the Indian Navy has deployed over 35 ships in the region, carried out more than 1,000 boarding operations, and has responded to over 35 incidents. The credible and swift actions of the Indian Navy have saved more than 520 lives, irrespective of nationality.
The envoy spoke about India's Sagar Mein Samman initiative under the Maritime India Vision 2030 to promote gender-sensitive safety standards, improved accommodation and sanitation on board, zero tolerance for harassment and the integration of gender considerations into safety management and audit processes. COP30 Climate Summit is heading for a dramatic showdown. A new draft agreement has dropped all mention of fossil fuels, sparking outrage among delegates. Critics say that the text fails to address the root causes of the climate crisis, while others stress the need for financing and a fair transition that respects national priorities. DD India's Rahul Upadhyay brings us this report.
The COP30 climate summit in Belém, Brazil, headed for a dramatic showdown on Friday as hosts dropped efforts to push for a global plan to phase out fossil fuels. The move has reignited tensions over the future of oil, gas and coal in international climate negotiations. A new draft text was released without the mention of fossil fuels, removing all options that had appeared in earlier versions. The omission has sparked outrage at the two-week conference of nearly 200 governments.
Colleagues, friends, the political text released is simply unacceptable. It is not a serious basis for negotiations. It fails the Amazon, it fails science, it fails justice, and it fails the people we are here to represent. It simply cannot be legitimized. There is no mention of fossil fuels phased out, or phased down, or deforestation. Nothing. This COP is even failing to repeat language already agreed in previous years and under the global stocktake. Failing to name the causes of the climate crisis is not compromise, it's denial, it's criminal.
Amid the heated debate, India's Environment Minister Bhupendra Yadav strongly underlined the country's position. He said India remains committed to domestic adaptation as part of climate action, but stressed the urgent need for scaled-up adaptation finance to bridge the widening global gap. Minister Bhupendra Yadav emphasized that a just transition must go beyond the energy sector, describing it as, quote, an economy-wide, all-inclusive, people-centered transformation that respects national circumstances, ensures equity, and secures social justice, unquote. As COP30 heads into its final stretch, the absence of fossil fuel language in the draft deal has set the stage for a fierce battle. India's stance on removing fossil fuels is that, while it supports the goal, any phase-out must be equitable and not uniform across nations, recognizing the need for a just transition that considers development priorities. With developing nations demanding equity, finance and justice, the world watches whether Belém will deliver a breakthrough or deepen divides in the global fight against climate change. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
Troubling developments from Nigeria, where a fresh wave of violence has deepened concerns over the country's security situation. A major kidnapping incident has once again put the spotlight on the growing threat posed by armed groups and the urgent need for stronger protections.
Nigeria is reeling under yet another brutal mass abduction. More than 300 students and teachers have been kidnapped in one of the country's largest such attacks, the second school kidnapping in just a week.
We woke up yesterday with a very sad news of the unfortunate incidents of the kidnapping of children of the missionary school in Papiri in Agwara State, Niger State.
Soon after the incident, Niger state government announced closure of all schools.
Nigeria is the only country we have, and Niger State is our state. As such, we must continue as government to protect the lives and properties of our citizens. In this decision, the stakeholders today have decided to close all schools in Niger State.
This latest abduction comes amid a surge in violence by armed groups. On Monday, over 20 schoolgirls were kidnapped from a boarding school in neighboring Kebbi State. Further south in Kwara, a church service streamed online turned into horror when gunmen attacked, killing 2 worshippers and abducting 38 others.
These incidents will have been avoided. However, it's not a time for blame game. Our mission today is to see how we can rescue these children and all those that have been kidnapped in that incident. As such, we are calling on all the security agencies, civil society organizations, organized labor, clerics, to please focus on the rescue of these children.
Nigeria's deteriorating security climate is drawing global scrutiny, especially after US President Donald Trump warned of fast military action if Abuja fails to curb the mass killings of Christians across the country. As rescue efforts intensify and families wait anxiously for the news, The latest wave of kidnappings underscores the scale of Nigeria's security crisis and the growing international pressure now bearing down on it. Bureau Report, DD India.
Brazil's former President Jair Bolsonaro was taken from house arrest into police custody on Saturday to prevent him from escaping as he appeals a conviction for a failed coup attempt. The far-right firebrand was sentenced to 27 years in prison over a plot to stop leftist Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva from taking office after the 2022 election. Supreme Court Judge Alexandre de Moraes, who is leading the trial against Bolsonaro, said that his arrest was a preventative measure as he is a high flight risk and not the execution of his sentence. Bolsonaro, who governed Brazil from 2019 to 2022, was placed under house arrest in August and has been confined to an upscale condominium in the capital Brasilia and monitored electronically. Still to come on DD India Newshour. An expert take on Ukraine-Russia peace moves as Europe scrambles to respond to Trump's peace proposal.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. European and other Western leaders said on Saturday that a U.S. peace plan was a basis for talks to end the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but needed additional work, part of Western efforts to eke out a better deal for Kyiv before a Thursday deadline. Meeting on the sidelines of the G20 Summit, European and other Western leaders scrambled to come up with a coordinated response to U.S. President Donald Trump's demand for Ukraine to accept his 28-point peace proposal with Russia by Thursday. Here's more.
Ukraine and its European allies scrambled on Saturday to come up with counter-proposals after US President Donald Trump gave Kiev a tight deadline to approve a deal to end the conflict that accepts some of Russia's hardline demands. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has pushed back against the 28-point US plan. At the meeting of the group of 20 major economies in South Africa, leaders from Britain, France, Germany, Japan, Canada, Italy, Spain, Norway, the Netherlands, Finland, Ireland, the EU Commission and the EU Council met to discuss the joint response to a unilateral US plan for Ukraine. Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer, France's President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz also attended a trilateral meeting on the sidelines of the G20 Leaders Summit on Saturday. They all stressed a solution for Ukraine would have to fully imply Ukraine preserve its sovereignty and guarantee its full security, according to a statement.
Fragility in the Middle East, rising threats of authoritarianism and fragmentation, as well as Russia's ongoing unjustified war in Ukraine. The shockwaves of that invasion are still reverberating through global markets today. It has hit growth, driven up food and energy prices, and deepened persistent imbalances and instability across the world.
As diplomacy gains momentum, Ukraine and the US are launching talks in Switzerland after Washington sent Kiev a plan which accepts some of Moscow's demands. Ukraine's negotiating team has said that consultations will take place between senior officials of Ukraine and the United States on the possible parameters of a future peace agreement. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has welcomed the US-backed peace plan and said the plan could lay the foundation for a Ukraine peace deal, confirming for the first time that Moscow had received a copy from the United States.
We have this text. We received it through existing channels of communication with the US administration. I believe it can be used as a basic of a financial peaceful settlement, but it has not been discussed with us in detail, and I can guess why. The reason is the same. The US administration has so far failed to secure Ukraine's consent. Ukraine is against it.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that real peace is always based on guaranteed security and justice. Earlier, Zelensky said that Ukraine is facing one of the most challenging moments in its history, adding he would propose alternatives to Trump's proposal. Dheeraj Das reports for DD India.
And with us still is our guest, Ambassador Gurjeet Singh. Ambassador Singh, thank you for your patience. Ambassador Singh, for the benefit of our viewers, joining us from around the world, is a former ambassador to Germany, Indonesia, Timor-Leste, the ASEAN, Ethiopia, Djibouti, and the African Union. Ambassador Singh, for the benefit of viewers who are not familiar with this so-called Trump's peace plan, what does this 28-point plan actually have to say?
The 28-point plan is so detailed that the Europeans were spending more time studying this than the G20 declaration.
Indeed.
And I think the sustainability and just transition have a different meaning if you study this plan. So essentially, if you break it down, I would say there are four broad things. The first is territory. So all that Russia has already absorbed, Ukraine is asked to give up. And some areas Ukraine is asked to vacate, which Russia wants, and they would be made into demilitarized zone with no Russian occupation but Russian sovereignty. Now this, I think, is the most difficult part for Ukraine to accept. The second part is that there is a nuclear power plant which is going to be now placed, if this agreement goes through, under the IAEA, and that will divide the nuclear power 50-50 between Russia and Ukraine. The Ukraine has defense forces currently of about 880,000 people, vastly bigger than the 250,000 they had before the Russian war started. They will be asked to cut it down to 600,000. Further, the NATO entry of Ukraine will be sacrificed. There will be no NATO entry of Ukraine. However, Ukraine could aspire to a EU membership. So like this, the main points go on, and the Russians seem satisfied that this could be a good basis for the agreement, because it seems to reflect most of the things they have told the US. Whereas whatever President Zelensky has been saying does not seem to have met with approval, and Zelensky, instead of rejecting these demands because he finds some of them unpalatable, is basically saying either I have my dignity or I lose a major friend, which is the United States, without whom actually neither the war nor Ukraine reconstruction can actually go on. So I think that are the contours within which they have to operate, and the most important part is that the Europeans have not been consulted by the United States, and it appears that neither has Ukraine, and Ukraine has been given a deadline of Thursday to abide by this agreement so that the United States can arrange further discussions with Russia to end this war.
Thank you for that comprehensive overview, Ambassador. Let's flesh out the specifics now. Just so we are clear, if you go by what you have shared with our viewers just now, what's in it for Ukraine? One wonders, I mean, based on what you have to say, no NATO membership, only EU membership at best. Zaporizhzhia plant will be shared with Russia. Ukraine will have to prune its armed forces personnel number. Will have to concede territory without doubt. So one wonders, isn't Zelensky right when he says this peace plan is lopsided in favor of Russia, it seems?
It is evident that he cannot win this war. He is surviving on American aid, which Americans don't want to give anymore, and a lot of European bluster and aid. Now, I think the Europeans need that armament exports to Ukraine to sustain their new emphasis on the defense industrial complex. But I don't think the Americans are quite ready to play that up. So the Americans are ready to pull out of Ukraine, provided they get reconstruction contracts. So there is a part which says that of the various Russian assets which are arrested, 200 billion would be used, out of which the Americans would have a right to half of them. And the Europeans will be asked to pitch up an equal amount from their pocket to reconstruct Ukraine. As you know that America already has a critical mineral agreement with the Ukraine, so they are going to benefit if peace returns. So it is indeed, as the Ukraine president says, a difficult decision, but all defeats are difficult. And this defeat is coming by the back door.
Indeed. Again, just so we are clear and viewers understand this better, instead of becoming a NATO member, what the plan proposes is that the Ukraine will get a NATO-style security guarantee from the US. Would that be enough, Ambassador, in your estimation, for Ukraine to come on board and accept this proposal?
Like many of the 28 points, this critical point, nobody quite knows how it will be implemented.
Right.
Will the Americans implement the security guarantee, or will they tell the Europeans to do so? And how does the security guarantee work if there are Ukrainian missiles fired at Russia after the ceasefire? Then this guarantee will not be operational. And if Russia is supposed to not attack Ukraine or any other country on its border, that seems to be one gain at Ukraine's cost. So I think there are 28 points. Most of them are not clearly defined, but what you can surmise from them, that it is not a happy day for Ukraine.
I'm afraid that's all we have time for. I will have to leave it at that. Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, thank you once again for joining us and sharing your perspectives with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And still to come on DD India Newshour, all the glitz and glamour from IFFI. And in badminton, India's Lakshya Sen storms into the Australian Open final. Welcome back. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. The Indian Army's Western Command on Saturday concluded exercise Ram Prahar at Dudhala Dayalwala in the Jilmil Jheel Reserve Forest of Haridwar. The rigorous military drill brought together mechanized forces, artillery units, aviation assets and special operations teams in a comprehensive display of the Army's transformation journey and tactical evolution. The exercise featured seamless integration and coordination among multiple combat arms, highlighting the Western Command's focus on joint operations and technological advancement. The last rites of the victims of the Madinah bus accident were conducted on Saturday in Madinah, Saudi Arabia, with the ceremonies carried out in full accordance with Islamic traditions. The solemn proceedings drew relatives, community members and officials who came together to honor those who lost their lives in the tragedy. The Governor of Andhra Pradesh, Justice S. Abdul Nazir, attended the funeral prayers at the Prophet's Mosque and later the burial at the revered Jannatul Baqi Cemetery. Minister of Minorities Welfare, Government of Telangana, Muhammad Azharuddin, India's Ambassador to Saudi Arabia, Dr. Suhail Khan, and Consul General in Jeddah, Fahad Suri, were also present. Officials from Saudi Arabia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Governorate of Madinah also participated. In Bhutan, the sacred relics of Lord Buddha brought from India by a high-level delegation on 8 November are attracting an overwhelming number of devotees, leading the Indian government to extend the exposition until the 25th of November. Initially scheduled to conclude on 18th November, the display has witnessed unprecedented footfall, with thousands of Bhutanese citizens and tourists arriving daily to seek blessings. Local Bhutanese people have warmly welcomed the extension, expressing heartfelt gratitude to the Indian government for allowing more time for offering prayers to the revered relics. Devotees conveyed their appreciation to Prime Minister Modi for this initiative, calling it a reflection of the deep spiritual and cultural bond shared between India and Bhutan.
I would like to thank Our Majesty, the Indian government, for giving us such an opportunity to witness this sacred relic, because in our Mahayana Buddhism, witnessing such relics is considered to give us motivation to do our religion or practice our religion, or also it's also believed that we can also attain enlightenment.
I came here to visit the relics, which is very auspicious, and regarding this I thank India government and Bhutan too, and to share my experience, I feel very happy visiting it with my family.
We are very grateful to the government of India and Bhutan for providing us such opportunities, especially when they extended the time period for us to visit it. And me and my friends were feeling very blessed.
Really like to thank government of India and government of Bhutan for organizing such a event to give the opportunity to the people to see such a very sacred relics. Otherwise, we won't be having an opportunity to see such a relics.
We are coming from Indonesia. We just want to see the Buddha's relic, and we know that we are very fortunate enough to see the relics because it's coming from India as well. So we got the chance today to see. It's like the bone of the Siddhartha Gautama, and we are really blessed to see.
Waves Film Bazaar, the flagship initiative of IFFI, is bringing together all market stakeholders under one roof. We get you an exclusive report from Ground Zero on how Waves Film Bazaar is supporting emerging talent, showcasing world-class techniques and proving to be a game changer in the world of cinema.
So the International Film Festival of India, the 56th edition, is also a place where the global cinema market unites under the banner of Waves Film Bazaar. And this time, more than 300 filmmakers have united, and they are exchanging their views, thoughts and opportunities for co-production, production. And for the first time ever, the AI Film Festival is also going on. We had a word with different stakeholders. Let's take a look at this report to understand more about the Waves Film Bazaar. Waves Film Bazaar is the official film market segment of IFFI and serves as a marketplace for the filmmakers, emerging voices and industry professionals. Organized annually alongside IFFI, the bazaar supports content creators by facilitating both creative collaboration and financial partnerships. This time, the Waves Film Bazaar is also having a special segment dedicated to AI production and co-production. We caught up with the production team of the Australian film to know how they integrated AI into Waves Film Bazaar.
We will be using AI to dub and enhance the film so it can be heard in Tamil, Hindi,
yes, Marathi and Punjabi and in various other Indian languages.
The Waves Film Bazaar not only promotes international content but has a special focus on the promotion of regional content as well as to the global market. To make it a success, many market leaders are uniting through their technology-related initiatives. One of them is CineDubs, who've created a special mobile application through which any of the film can be seen in a regional language.
CineDubs is a mobile app which allows you to watch a movie in a theatre in your language while the movie is screening in a different language.
Waves Film Bazaar also proudly hosts market leaders like Sony, who bring in exclusive and latest technology for industry leaders and expand the business opportunity through the platform of Waves Film Bazaar.
It's a very exciting platform because we have a lot of DOPs coming in, we have a lot of producers, screenwriters, and this year the expansion is graduated. We could see people across India coming and trying to share, connect, and reach out to people.
This year, Waves Film Bazaar was officially inaugurated by the Minister of State, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, and aims to unite the world of cinema and its stakeholders under one single roof. And there you saw how Waves Film Bazaar is creating ripples across the marketplace when we talk about the film industry. This is a perfect opportunity for everybody to unite together and make something great for the world through the platform of FE. With camera person Senthil, this is Deepika reporting for DD India from Goa.
The ongoing edition of the International Film Festival of India witnessed the signing of MOU between India and Australia. We get you more in the next report.
The Indian Film Festival of Melbourne forged a major 3-year partnership with International Film Festival of India, signing multiple memorandums of understanding aimed at deepening the ties between Australia and India in the film industry. The agreements were formalized on the 21st of November at the ongoing 56th edition of IFFI in Panjim, Goa, where IFFI was part of the delegation of Australian screen industry leaders. The partnership encompasses co-production frameworks, theatrical distribution access, and academic exchanges between film institutions. We had a word with few of the industry leaders from Australia. Take a listen. So we are with the director and the producer of How to Talk Australians. First of all, tell us about your experience being in India and the kind of transformation you've seen in the Indian cinema.
I love India. I must admit, it's a great place. I love the people in India. I think India is very confident now about its film industry. They know they have the biggest film industry in the world. And they're very confident about it, and they're confident about what they do. And you've got to love that because it just it helps the world with cinema. We love cinema. We want it to keep growing. And so I think it's a great thing that Bollywood and India in general, because I think it's much bigger than just Bollywood, I think it's great that you love film because it helps us.
There's a special focus on production and co-production along with other countries, and Australia has a special focus this time at this particular edition of IFFI. How do you look at this collaboration?
Oh, we think this collaboration is wonderful. This is really exciting for us to be able to collaborate with other production companies, directors, writers, producers in India. It's a really exciting opportunity.
And when we talk about How to Talk Australians, what do you think? What sort of reception is it getting from Indians here?
Well, it's early days, I think. I mean, a few people have seen it, but I mean, this is the first screening we've had ever. So it's, the screening we just had 10 minutes ago, first screening we've ever had. And I think people said it was funny, so that's a good sign. I think that's a good sign. But, we're still wondering.
And how is IFFI helping in promoting it?
Oh, we have met some incredible people, both Indian, Australian. It's been really great to meet different distributors, and just get to be a part of the market and make those relationships.
So there you saw that how India and Australia are co-collaborating, and both the countries, they not only share a good bilateral relationship in terms of diplomacy, but in terms of film and technology as well.
All right, now to news from the world of sport. India's Lakshya Sen beat Chao Tien-chen of Chinese Taipei in the semi-finals of the Australian Open badminton tournament in Sydney to enter the final. Lakshya saved 3 match points to beat his world number 6 opponent 17-21, 24-22, 21-16. This was Sen's 4th win against Chao Tien-chen in 8 meetings. The 2022 World Championships bronze medalist Chao Tien-chen took the opening game with ease. Sen tightened up his game in the second and dragged the match into the decider by saving 3 match points. With the momentum on his side, Sen closed out a commanding finish to reach his second final of the season. The Indian shuttler will face Japanese Yushi Tanaka in the Sunday final. In cricket, spinner Kuldeep Yadav took 3 wickets as India rattled South Africa with late strikes to leave the tourist 247 for the loss of 6 at stumps on the first day of the second test at Guwahati. Tristan Stubbs, who made 49, and skipper Themba Bavuma put on 84 for the 3rd wicket after South Africa elected to bat in their bid for a first test series win in India in 25 years. After Ravindra Jadeja had Bavuma caught by Yashasvi Jaiswal in the final session, Kuldeep snuffled 2 key wickets to peg back the visitors. At stumps, Senuran Muthusamy was unbeaten on 25 with new batter Kyle Verreynne at the other end as Mohammad Siraj had Tony De Zorzi caught behind. South Africa chased a first series win in India since the late Hansi Cronje's team triumphed in 2000. The tourists won the first test of the 2-match series by 30 runs in Kolkata. And that's all we have for you in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can get the latest news on the DD India mobile app, which is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You may wish to scan the QR code to download it. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.